Flowers you will have, of course, about your room, but don't have all kinds of flowers, vaguely arranged or crowded together in great bouquets. Some flowers, such as roses or violets, whose greatest beauty are their color, are made to be seen in masses, but flowers which are perfect in form, like the narcissus, daffodil, or lily, should be placed singly in a small Venetian glass so that they can hang naturally as they are seen upon their stem. Speaking of glass, never have cut glass. It is too common for use and is so hard and sharp, without grace in its lines. Have delicate blown glass. I dislike very much the American dinner service. Plain white china is too cold, and modern designs in silver are of vulgar design. People of taste cannot help expressing their indignation upon going into the modern jewelry establishment at the sight of the great amount of costly material that is ruined in the manufacture of centerpieces. The beauty of the table depends upon the quality and appearance of the china and glass. For a good permanent dinner set, have Japanese or blue and white china, and have an old silverware until your artisans learn to make it. There should be flowers on the table, too. Those of you who have old china use it, I hope. There is nothing so absurd as having good china stuck up in a cabinet merely for show, while the family drink from Delft. If you can't use good old china without breaking it, then you don't deserve to have it. Whatever you have that is beautiful, if for use, then you should use it, or part with it to someone who will. The handling of coarse things begets coarse handling. In a restaurant in San Francisco, I saw a Chinese navvy drinking his tea out of a most beautiful cup as delicate as the petal of a flower, while I had to drink at one of the first-class hotels in which thousands were spent on gaudy colors and gilding, out of a cup which was an inch and a half thick. Those navvies do not break these delicate cups because they are accustomed to handling them. You have to use delicate things to accustom your servants to handle them securely. It will be a martyrdom for a long time at first, but you may be content to suffer in so good a cause. I bought Venetian glass when I was at college, and for the first term my servant broke one glass every day and a decanter on Sunday, but I persevered in buying them. And during the succeeding terms of my whole college stay at college, he did not break a single piece. About pictures, I have seen the ruining of so many fine pictures in the framing, the reason of the frame being out of all keeping with the picture. I don't like to see great, glaring, pretentious gold frames for fine pictures. Use gold frames only where the picture can plainly bear it, and in all other cases, picture frames should be tinted a middle tone between the picture and the wall. Oil paintings in gold frames should be richly hung with velvet bands, while watercolors and etchings should be suspended by cords. Nothing is more saddening, nothing more melancholy, than having to look upon pictures hung in lines. You might as well set 10 or 20 young girls on a platform, playing one tune on pianos at the same time. Two pictures should not be hung side by side. They will either kill one another or else commit artistic suicide. To stick them in rows makes me wonder why people like pictures at all. Your pictures may be hung with good effect upon a chocolate shade of paper, but not having geometrical figures which distract the attention. They should be hung from a ledge under the frieze and should be hung also on the eye line. The habit in America of hanging them up near the cornices struck me as irrational at first. It was not until I saw how bad the pictures were that I realized the advantage of the custom. Put no photographs of paintings on your walls. They are libels on great masters. There is no way to get a worse idea of a painter than by a photograph of his work. I don't think I ever saw a photograph that was a decoration, for the first thing you should see is its beauty of color, and there is no color of worth for decorative purposes in photographs. They are ridiculous pretenses and should be kept in portfolios to show whose friendship is not treacherous. As a painting should be an exquisite arrangement of colors, so an engraving should be an exquisite arrangement of black and white, which the photograph never is. Most modern engravings are not good. They may be hung on walls or framed in plain wood and placed on a shelf. Woodcuts of masters like Doré may be framed in wood and hung on the walls. Every house should have some casts of old Greek work if possible. There can be no nobler influence in a room than a marble Venus of Milo. In the presence of an image so pure, no tongue would date to talk scandal. There should be casts of good men in the library. And now books. An old library is one of the most beautifully colored things imaginable. The old colors are toned down, and they look so well bound, for whatever is beautiful is well made. Modern bookbinding is one of the greatest drawbacks to the beauty of many libraries. Books are bound in all manner of gaudy colors. The best binding is white vellum, which in a few years looks like ivory or calf, and with age takes on the tints of gold. You can't have all your books rebound. The only thing left is to have curtains to hide them out of sight until a more tasteful style than the modern one of binding prevails. When I landed in Boston, I found my old publisher, who had moved from London, binding my poems in all those dreadful colors which I had spent my youth trying to abolish. He might have spared me, I thought. As regards dress, the true nobility of dress is an important part of education, but there is much in the dress of modern times to discourage us. If it were not for the lovely dressing of the 13th and 14th centuries, the excellence of Venetian art would never have existed. But there is nothing in the styles of the present to give such models to the artists. I hardly dare suggest what must be the thought of the true sculptor when asked to work out the statue of a modern. His thought must be suicidal. There is nothing more indicative of a moral decline than squalor and an indifference to dress. The money spent on modern dress is an extravagant waste. People should not mar beautiful things by gloomy dress. Beautiful surroundings by gloomy dress. Dress nowadays is altogether too somber, and we should accustom ourselves to the use of more color and brightness. There should always be a beautifully arranged composition of well-balanced light and shade. There would be more joy in life if we would accustom ourselves to use all the beautiful colors we can in fashioning our own clothes. The dress of the future, I think, will use drapery to a great extent and will abound with joyous color. One should have nothing on one's dress that has not some meaning or that is not useful. Beauty in dress consists in its simplicity. All useless and encumbering bows, flounces, knots, and other such meaningless things so fashionable today are nothing but the foolish inventions of the milliner. All the evil of modern dressing has come from the failure to recognize that the right people to construct our apparel are artists, not modern milliners, whose chief aim is to swell their bills. Nothing is beautiful, such as tight corsets, which is destructive of health. All dress follows out of the lines of the figure. It should be free to move about in, showing the figure. Anything that disfigures the form or blots out the beauty of the natural lines is ugly. And so, a knowledge of anatomy, as well as art, is necessary in correct dressmaking. If one could fancy the Medicean Venus taken from her pedestal in the Louvre to Mr. Worth's establishment in the Palais Royal to be dressed in modern French millinery, every single beautiful line would be destroyed, and no one would look at her a second time. Go through a book of costumes, and you will find that when dress was most simple, it was most beautiful. One of the earliest forms is the ancient Greek drapery, which is most simple and so exquisite for your girls. But I must warn you that it is most difficult to design. And then I think we may be pardoned a little enthusiasm over the dress of the time of Charles II, so beautiful indeed that in spite of its mention being with the Cavaliers, it was copied by the Puritans. And the dress for the children at that time must not be passed over. It was a very golden age for the little ones. I don't think that they have ever looked so lovely as they do in the pictures of that time. And the ladies might study the costumes of the old Venetian ladies and pattern after them. If something more modern is desired, the dress of the last century in England was also particularly generous and graceful. It can be found in the style of dress painted by Sir Joshua Reynolds and by Gainsborough. There is nothing bizarre about it, and it is full of harmony and beauty. There should be nothing outre in dress. A man or woman of taste can so conform their dress that it will not merit disapproval, but receive the praise of those who have an artistic eye. Of all ugly things, nothing can exceed in ugliness artificial flowers, which I am sure none of you wear, and it is better not to wear any modern jewelry, since none of the designs are good. It is difficult to speak of the modern bonnet. There are no limits to indignation, but there are limits to language. For the modern bonnet is an irrational monstrosity, not affording the wearer the slightest use. It does not keep the sun off in summer, nor the rain off in winter. The large hat of the last century was more sensible and useful, and nothing is more graceful in the world than a broad brimmed hat. We have lost the art of draping the human form, and have even discarded the graceful cloak, with its deep folds, for the unnatural and ungraceful jacket. The cloak, on the other hand, is always graceful, and is the simplest and most beautiful drapery ever devised. The uncomfortable character of our present dress is shown by our willingness to adopt a new fashion every 3 months. All really beautiful dress is durable too, and if the beautiful is obtained, economy would be secured also. In these days, when we have suffered so dreadfully from the incursions of the modern milliners, we hear ladies boast that they do not wear a dress more than once. In the old days, when dresses were decorated with beautiful designs and worked with exquisite embroidery, ladies rather took pride in bringing out the garment and wearing it many times, and handing it down to their daughters as something precious and beautiful for them to wear. A process which I think would be quite appreciated by modern husbands and fathers when called upon to settle the bills. And how shall men dress? Men say they don't particularly care how they dress, and that is little matter. I am bound to reply that I don't believe them, and don't think that you do either. They dress in black and sober grays and browns because that is the custom, and their dress is not beautiful either in design, being careless and without harmony of style. In all my journeys through the country, the only well-dressed men I have seen in America were the miners of the Rocky Mountains. They wore a wide-brimmed hat, which shaded their faces from the sun and protected them from the rain, and their flowing cloak, which is by far the most beautiful piece of drapery ever invented, may well be dwelt upon with admiration. Their high boots, too, were sensible and practical. These miners dressed for comfort, and of course attained the beautiful. As I looked at them, I could not help thinking with regret of the time when these picturesque miners should have made their fortunes, and would go west to assume again all the abomination of modern fashionable attire. Indeed, I made some of them promise that when they again appeared in the more crowded scenes of Eastern civilization, they would still continue to wear their lovely costume, but I don't believe they will. The dress of the men in the last century was graceful. The gentlemen might study for their pattern the noble and beautiful attire of George Washington. That brave and great man dressed with taste, as did other American gentlemen of his day. Men should dress more in velvet, gray or brown or black, as it catches the light and shade, while broadcloth is ugly, as it does not absorb the light. Trousers become dirty in the street. Knee breeches are more comfortable and convenient, prettier to look at too, and easier to keep out of the mud. High boots in the streets keep the mud off, but low shoes and silk stockings should be used in the drawing room. Finally, cloaks should be worn instead of coats. In conclusion, what is the relation of art to morals? It is sometimes said that our art is opposed to good morals, but on the contrary, it fosters morality. Wars and the clash of arms and the meeting of men in battle must be always, but I think that art, by creating a common intellectual atmosphere between all countries, might, if it could not overshadow the world with the silvery wings of peace, at least make men such brothers that they would not go out to slay one another for the whim or folly of some king or minister as they do in Europe, for national hatreds are always strongest where culture is lowest, and hence the enormous importance given to all the decorative arts in our English Renaissance. We want children to grow up in England in the simple atmosphere of all fair things. The refining influence of art, begun in childhood, will be of the highest value to all of us in teaching our children to love what is beautiful and good and hate what is evil and ugly. Then, when a child grows up, he learns that industrious we must be, but industry without art is simply barbarism. For there never was an age that so much needed the spiritual ministry of art as the present. Today, more than ever, the artist and a love of the beautiful are needed to temper and counteract the sordid materialism of the age. In an age when science is undertaken to declaim against the soul and spiritual nature of man, and when commerce is ruining beautiful rivers and magnificent woodlands and the glorious skies in its greed for gain, the artist comes forward as a priest and prophet of nature to protest and even to work against the prostitution or the perversion of what is lofty and noble in humanity and beautiful in the physical world, and his religion, in its benefits to mankind, is as broad and shining as the sun. There are grand truths and beauty in the Catholic pictorial art and in the Protestant religious music, which no sectarian prejudices and no narrow minded bigotry can keep the world from acknowledging and admiring. I urge you all not to become discouraged because ridicule is thrown upon those who have the boldness to run counter to popular prejudice. In time, the true aesthetic principles will prevail. Throughout the world, in all times and all ages, there have been those who have had the courage to advocate opinions that were for the time abhorred by the public, but if those who hold those opinions have the courage to maintain and defend them, it is absolutely certain that in the end truth will prevail, and so let it be for you to create an art that is made with the hands of the people, for the joy of the people too, an art that will be a democratic art, entering into the houses of the people, making beautiful the simplest vessels they contain, for there is nothing in common life too mean, in common things too trivial, to be ennobled by your touch, nothing in life that art cannot raise and sanctify.